Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today is a special episode. We brought Jake Breen back onto the show, and I'm proud to announce that Jake is officially an author in our most recent Mission Matters book release. So first off, hey, just want to say, Jake, welcome back to the show and congrats.
Appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right, Jake. So you're my guy when it comes to this. So I'm excited to go further in today's topic. So we're going to talk for everybody listening. We're going to talk about really what Jake wrote about in the recent release. So he's writing about real estate myths specifically. Myth number 1, location. Myth 2, buying a house traps you. Myth 3, the best real estate agents wear suits, have long meetings, and always return phone calls. I love that one. Myth number 4, the early bird gets the worm. Myth number 5, the best real estate agent is the one you know. We'll pick a couple of these myths to dive into today. But before we do that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So Jake, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Jake, what mission matters to you?
You know, I didn't necessarily know this in my early 20s, but a slogan that has stuck with my sales team as we've built the last 2 decades that we still use today when we're signing off on a lot of videos or online marketing is simply this: we educate you so you can make an educated decision when it comes to your real estate. I didn't know in my early 20s how impactful that might be when I got into my 40s. But as that's expanded, really what matters to me and my team is creating that financial literacy. And there's so much information out there nowadays. Everything's at our fingertips, especially younger generations often wants to look online or scroll social media first to find data and information. And although there's a lot of good information out there, there's also a lot of misinformation and bad information. And so maybe a decade, maybe 15 years ago, we got a little nervous, as many professionals did, that these advancements in technology would erode our value as sales folk. And now we've learned that it's just added more tools to our arsenal to give real information backed by solid data to assist people in making some of the biggest financial decisions in their lives when it comes to real estate.
And well, great to have you back on the show. And we're definitely going to dig deeper into your mission and also the topic. But I don't want to assume that maybe some of our newer listeners caught some of the previous work we've done together. So let's just start kind of basic with how you got started in real estate and attracted to the industry.
Sure. Yeah, I did a service project in my late teens, early 20s, and was out of the country doing service for a couple of years. And I always thought leading up to that I would go to law school. And I came home to Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and kind of started seeing the pathway I would take and the entrepreneurial skills I wouldn't be able to use that I was starting to recognize that I had if I just went straight down the law degree. And at the same time, a lot of things changed really quickly in my life. My parents got divorced, and I quickly found myself having to pay for everything on my own and sleeping on friends' couches and things like that. And I kind of went, gosh, I gotta be a professional and make money right now. And so just decided to buy a house. This is a common story for a lot of people that get into real estate. Yeah. And at 21, 22 years old, it's like, who in my sphere of influence would trust me to sell their property? I don't know anything about it. I'm too young. So I started just with some remodels and flips. And back then it was a little less barrier to entry and easier to do, and loans were easier. But we had some success with that, and started building a little team. And as we did those things and produced, we started getting people asking us, hey, can I do the same? And we were also adopting early technology back then. This is, early 2000s.
Yeah.
So at least in our market, we were some of the first to go take digital pictures of properties and then give an analysis for what it could be bought for, what we'd have to do to it, and how much it would cost to remodel it. Fast forward 2 decades, this is kind of a me and my friends from high school, and a lot of my family works with me now. And it got my brother a full-time business. He's a general contractor and custom home builder now. I've always run the sales team. My father's a broker. And so we kind of just grew organically like that. And I guess the last thing I'll say about it is I've spent the last 20 years not only doing professional real estate sales, so to speak, but ran luxury brands, was the managing broker of Sotheby's when that came to Utah. Was a managing broker of the corporate office of Berkshire Hathaway when that brand came to Utah.
Yeah.
Now own an independent boutique. And I would say we're unique because although our main business, we call it the bread and butter, is real estate sales, being a traditional agent, we've expanded into ancillary businesses and done all types of investing. We owned every asset class, custom building, and then I've spoke around the country and done a decent amount of training. I was a public speaker for Berkshire Hathaway for 10 years, training agents on not just the industry, but also personal life habits. It's kind of a real interest and hobby for me on how to optimize all things in your life.
I want you to talk to maybe that newer agent right now, or that individual that is considering going into real estate as a profession and a serious career. What do you think it takes to make it in real estate today as an agent?
That's a great question, actually. We could Google this, and there's a lot of simple, swift answers, right? But I'll be very candid to somebody that might be thinking that. And I've got that question a lot. And let me also add before I answer it that I also spent 6 years at a local college here in Salt Lake City, Westminster, after I got a graduate degree, serving with them and creating a program called AMP. It's the Alumni Mentoring Program. And so I've worked with a lot of young, bright-eyed, excited entrepreneurs. And then I've also seen their excitement get kind of sucked out and removed by the business world, because we all have great ideas, but then you tend to dive in, and there's a lot of roadblocks in all industry. Yeah. So in real estate, if you are going into sales, the first thing I'll ask somebody, and this might be a unique question, but I say, okay, what market are you getting licensed in? Great, Salt Lake City, Utah. What's your history in Salt Lake? You born and raised here? And I'll start going through these series of questions. And what I'm getting at is identifying what type of sphere of influence, that's what we call it in our industry, what type of sphere of influence that person has. In other words, who's your friends, family, who are ultimately going to be your clientele. Yeah. Now, it's okay if you're operating in a market where you hardly know anybody and you just moved there, but you've got to approach the business in a different way. And the second thing I will usually try to get at with people is I'm a firm believer that one size does not fit all. Now, I have competitors that run great sales teams and do really well under a very mechanic system and program. So there are tried and true programs that are, you prospect this much a day, you put on the headset, you read these scripts. We've been the very opposite of that approach for 20 years. And so when I'm talking to somebody new, I want to know what their sphere is, and then I want to know about them. And the older we get and the more we progress in business, the more you learn to who you are and what your strengths are, and you should focus on that. And new salespeople are often willing to say, things like, I'll do whatever it takes, or I'll just dive in and I'll work the off hours. And that's great. Work ethic matters a lot. Reliability and responsibility still matter a lot in the industry. But what can trump that and speed up your track to success is knowing yourself and focusing on when you're going to be most productive and what skill sets you have that can be tailored to service the industry well. And then it's just a lot easier. And then you don't hit burnout. You end up enjoying it, liking what you're doing.
Yeah. And one of the things that you said that I love, because I think sometimes, whether it's real estate, financial advisory, like a lot of, let's just say, the professional services industry, where there's some type of sales component involved, there's different methodologies, there's different setups, for lack of better words. I mean, there's different ways to work with your mentors in the industry, and it's not necessarily one size fits all. So I mean, I've heard many individuals who really thrive in that environment that you mentioned, that's really mechanical, do it this way, just keep on and keep on and keep on, and they thrive. Where others, at times, if they maybe entered the industry in that route and it wasn't for them, then they leave the industry because they think like that's the only way it can be done. When then you're a testament to, no, there's a whole nother way to do it as well. And not saying that your way versus another or something else is the right way, but it's more so like anything, like thinking about what's going to be a right fit for you and your goals, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. Let's spend some time on the book. So first off, I love I love the approach and kind of the format that you took as the real estate myth buster. I don't know if that's a new acronym or a new moniker, but what was your kind of thought process going through with some of the topics that you chose, like, and wanting to kind of bust these myths, so to speak? Like, what was your thought process in that?
Yeah. I like that you're asking why I came up with it that way, Adam. That's actually a good question. And my honest answer is, and I believe other industries are similar, but once you spend so much time in it, it's not like you know it all. And again, there's others that have success doing things in real estate that we don't understand or do at all. But I have a pretty good depth in the industry and can kind of wrap my arms around a lot of things. And I really decided to write about these myths because it just kind of irks at me. I've got these pet peeves of things I hear all the time. And despite how far my voice can travel and how much media I can put out there to dispel some mistruths, there's just not enough opportunity to resolve that. And, some of them are rather drastic fallacies that people play into that I still hear at least monthly, that are generally accepted as, the way real estate works and the way you're going to make it or break it financially, that just absolutely are not true anymore.
Yeah. And I had to ask you that question because I knew it irked at you, and I had to get that from you, because when I first saw it, I'm like, at first I was like, oh, these are really catchy titles. These are really catchy headlines, and it's going to be a great read. And then I started thinking about it, I'm like, we're with Jake. I know, like, he's getting this off his mind. He's getting this off his chest because he's tired of hearing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the real reason.
Let's pick on some of the obvious ones that when I saw this, I was like I was just excited to dig in, because as soon as you read the headline, you're like, okay, myth number one: location. I feel like anybody in the industry otherwise has heard of that. Dispel the myth for us.
So again, I mean, you bring up real estate and somebody will be like, oh, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, location. And the first thing I say when somebody says that is I go, whoa. Are we talking about your personal home? Are you looking for where you're going to move and raise your family? Or are we talking about investing? And people are usually, especially if someone wants to challenge me on this, they'll usually say, well, location still trumps everything, like, right? And, here's the fallacy. If we are defining location as safety and, again, where you're going to want to raise your family, then, obviously, I'm well aware that in any market, there's, great areas, there's more crime-ridden areas, and we can look up that data and statistics and, kind of make an educated decision. But that's changing in a big way, one, because of COVID and remote work and all these opportunities and kind of equalizing certain markets and regentrification that happens. And we could go on and on there.
Yeah.
But then the other big part of that really dispels what people believe about location is the investment side of real estate. So the analogy we use in the book, and I didn't just pull this out of thin air. I've done this study countless times for people.
Mm-hmm.
So in our market in Salt Lake, the Great Recession was November of 2008 to the first quarter of 2012. And in that time frame, median price declined 34% in Salt Lake County. Now, that's the greatest decline we've ever seen on record since we've kept real estate data in our market. In fact, there's only been 3 other times that we even saw a statistical median price downturn. And one of them is right now, and it's very different set of economic factors.
Yeah.
Back then, if you reverse your mindset, and I'm sure your market is similar, Adam, if you reverse your mindset to say 2010, winter of 2011, many people in the industry were just crying the blues. They were saying things like, the market will never go back to where it was. We'll never see that kind of pricing again. These easy to get, no doc loans, we never should have done that. And although there's a lot of truth to those things, here's the main point. And it's kind of back to the age-old adage that's always quoted about Warren Buffett said. And he said, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. Everybody I talked to was extremely fearful in winter of 2011. They didn't realize that it was only about 90 days past that time frame in which statistical median price started popping back up. And if you were a savvy investor at that time and watching trend charts, and let's say you had $1 million to invest, if you went to the nicest spot, the location of our market, which let's say that would be ski in, ski out, or in your market, that would be beachfront. And sure, you would be buying at the bottom, so to speak, and you could spend that $1 million and buy a single family residence. And then maybe you rented that out or whatever. But there is market example after market example after market example that if you would have repurposed that same $1 million in a more blighted and depressed area and maybe bought 4 condos for $250,000, you didn't just make a little bit more money in the coming years. You almost every time I've done this analysis, your appreciation rate was 50, 70, sometimes even double what it would have been on the one single family residence. And we could talk all day about it. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's spreading your eggs. It's that regardless of the location, oftentimes when a market rebounds, it's the cheapest real estate that as a percentage of its appreciation pops back quicker. So, location is just a real fallacy. And it not only is it changed, it's going to continue to change at a more rapid pace. I had this is the last thing I'll say, but I had this thought the other day. We have primarily discounted real estate that's on major fairways, freeways, highways, especially residential real estate, ever since it's existed around the globe. And the reasons for that, the main glaring one is traffic noise, right? But if you think about it, one of the other big things people pay up for in real estate, especially in commercial real estate, is access. So it's like if you have a car dealership, you want to be right off the exit, right off the main freeway in any major city, okay? But then if there's a residential apartment next door that's high-rise condos, they're probably buying at a 15 to 20% discount because of freeway noise versus 2 blocks off the freeway, but it's a little harder to access, especially in traffic. Well, over the next decade, as technology changes the way we use vehicles, as electric vehicles like my Rivian become totally silent, you're going to see a major pop in freeway frontage, easy, accessible residential real estate because that barrier that was an annoyance, the declined value, will be removed.
Oh, it makes so much sense. And I've had this conversation, and the question isn't like if or will, it's just when, right? Because it makes sense. It makes total sense. And when you think about all, and especially the cost and just other things that are involved with the, like keeping the noise down, other things that they've done, it'll be interesting how builds even take place going forward and like what all of that looks like. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fascinating.
So okay, myth number one, and by the way, for everybody watching this, we're not going to dispel all the myths today. I named them all for a very specific reason. I want you to go buy the book. I'm a publisher here. We do sell books, so there'll be a link in the notes, of course, to pick up a copy. But we're gonna tease you a little bit more. I want to make sure we get some more myths in here. So another big one for us, buying a house traps you. So give me this one.
Yeah, I like this one a lot, and I get this apprehension by far and away most often from first-time home buyers. And so typically first-time home buyers, whether they have gift money from family and they're buying at a luxury price point, or whether they're really using all of their financial capabilities to buy their first house on their own, I've found that their concerns are often very similar. And perhaps one of the largest is the liquidity of that real estate. And so they're usually thinking two things when they have this apprehension on liquidity. The first thing is they're thinking, well, let's say in my market right now, median price is about $500,000. And in their mind, they're saying, man, I've never spent $500,000. I mean, the most expensive thing I've ever bought is my vehicle. And this is, 10 times that. And so that's the first concern on their mind when it comes to liquidity. And the second is we tend to think of real estate as like signing in blood. Once you bought it, it is not liquid. It's, obviously moving and all that stuff is such a hassle. And so you better make a darn good decision. The problem with that thought process is, one, people who get too hung up on that, especially how the market's been the last decade post-recession and was even exacerbated during COVID, is time. Now, I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but if you think of how all of us as consumers are kind of predisposed on how to shop, well, we're in the day and age of everything being at our fingertips. You want a new TV? Check the price on Amazon, run down to Costco. Like, what's more convenient? Are you going to save $100 you can get it today if you go to the store? Prime will have it there maybe tomorrow morning. And it's too easy to do all that in 60 seconds. So we as consumers are jaded because we think there's unlimited supply, immediate access and availability, and that makes us feel like anything we buy is very liquid. So back to real estate. I've found, even if I give this speech, we as consumers have used those habits so often, it's ingrained in us, and we start to apply it to real estate. So you can look a first-time home buyer in the eye and say, our average days on market right now is 1 day. This is how it was during COVID. And every property that's up for sale is getting 10, 15, 20 offers. And here's everything you got to do to be competitive. And you can look them square in the eye and be super blunt on that. And they turn right around and apply their consumer habits and go, I'll look at a few this Saturday. We want to think about it. And they talk to their parents like, don't make a rash decision. I mean, real estate, like you buying that house is going to trap you. You'll be locked in for a long time. Here's the reality. The reality is real estate is far more liquid than you're assuming. And if you're buying a house for $500,000, you're not spending $500,000. You're really not. What you're doing, if you're getting a loan, which 87% of first-time home buyers are, so I'm making that assumption. If you're paying cash, it's different. But if you're getting a loan, you're only departing with the cash that's your down payment. And a lot of our first-time home buyers are doing FHA loans, so they're parting with 3 or 4% of the purchase price. So they're really parting with $20,000 and some moving costs. Of course, they're going to have a payment, but they have rent regardless. And even in a soft market, the 20 years I've been in the industry, even in the recession, that real estate is sellable. It's just a question of price. And it can be sellable in a weekend if the price is right. Now, the last caveat to this is when I say that, people go, yeah, but what if I buy at the peak and it declines? Warren Buffett said it, many others have. The worst thing you can try to do is time the market perfectly. What you can do, though, and what rules the roost in all real estate is what I call staying power. But it's also just an analogy with time. The reality is if you bought at the peak and you're thinking you're trapped in your house, you're only trapped while the market has the pricing suppressed, or if the price you could hypothetically sell for is less than what you paid. Okay. And again, people think in terms of, I paid 500. Now the market's soft and it's only worth 4. Well, you didn't lose $100,000. I call that phantom equity.
Yeah.
Remember, you only put down $20,000. You didn't lose anything yet.
Yeah.
You incur that if you are forced to sell. And on a rare occasion, people must for a change in life or a job change. But more often than not, if you can just have staying power, history will tell us that it's actually a pretty swift period of time in which that will correct. The worst one we ever have on record in my market is if you bought in summer of 2008. Yeah, you probably needed to wait until 2014 to break even. But by 2016, 17, you're at 25% appreciation. And by 2022, your real estate that you bought at the peak of 2008 has doubled again.
Yeah.
So we've got to stop thinking of real estate as you're departing with that much money and that it's not liquid. It's far more liquid than people assume.
Love it. I want to, and like I said a moment ago, we're not going to dispel all the myths. I want everybody to pick up a copy of this book. But I do want to spend some time while I have you on the line, Jake, talking about your business as well. So we'll jump around a bit from the book and let's get into Dijjit. So tell us a little bit more about the brokerage and also some of the other things you have going around on the affinity program, the referrals. Like, tell us a little bit more about the ecosystem that you've built.
Yeah, you got it. So although we've spent a lot of time just doing traditional real estate sales, and we've done it under the name brand of what I believe to be some of the best brands, again, I've managed at Sotheby's and Berkshire Hathaway. We ultimately opened up our own boutique so we could have full autonomy. And because we do a lot of other things outside of sales. So I often hear from people, oh man, the market is soft. How are you guys doing? I mean, we started our call today that way, right? Yeah. And what I've found training around the country is if all your eggs as a salesperson are just in the basket of selling, then, your excitement and your attitude about your industry ebb and flow with the market. And although that can be exciting, it can also be quite depressing. Because you talk to people that are day traders and it's a roller coaster and their mood can be determined by how the market is. And as I struggled with that, it wasn't that it always went well for me. As I struggled with that, and I found that even though every year I was doing better as a salesperson, in January 1st, I was restarting at 0. And I know all the effort the prior year took. And it was just, my wife even commented years ago, man, you're always just kind of have the blues in January. So we started branching out. And one of the first ancillary businesses that we started that took off, it's called Dijjit, DIJJIT.com. And the philosophy was simply this. By 2010, 2011, small fries, entrepreneurs like me, were not going to be successful trying to build out a website for the top search terms in your industry against Google. Yeah. So I'm not going to win against Zillow for the term lake, right? Yeah. And so we kind of raised that flag and said we give up. But we also noticed there was a lot of niche markets that were not competitive. And my good buddy owned a mortgage company at the time, and we started kind of categorizing professionals. And we said, well, we can definitely speak to doctors, nurses, and dentists. That's a whole umbrella field of people that there are some specialty programs for them as far as financing goes. It is a different kind of lingo. A lot of doctors who will be assigned a new hospital network will have a contractual obligation to live within a certain mileage of hospital networks. So as we started learning those things, we created custom pop-up websites that doctors could go search saying, I'm moving to Salt Lake City. I'm going to be in the IHC network. What neighborhoods would I want to live in as far as a house goes? They're often also people moving to a market that they've never explored or been in. So they're really needing that professional advice. As we did that, We also learned that a lot of mortgage companies that are licensed in multiple states have a much higher conversion rate of people they fill out a loan application for in the state that they physically reside versus the other states they're licensed in but have no physical presence. Now, it took us a good year to figure this out, but what we dialed it down to was it comes down to real estate agents, realtors, because a lender in a different state, and this happens very often nowadays, will pre-qualify a buyer online or just on the phone. There's no need for a consumer to go into a loan officer's office anymore. There hasn't been for a decade. But that pre-qualification was often disrupted when a local realtor physically got in front of the customer and said, oh, don't use that mortgage broker. I've got a person, because agents are very networked with brokers.
Yeah.
So we combined doctors, nurses, and dentists' philosophy with mortgage companies and created Dijjit. And simply put, all Dijjit did is go through every state in the United States and get good, reputable, responsive realtors. We have a 7 touch point algorithm that ranks them, and got pretty much every county in the US with at least 1 or 2 good, responsive agents. By the way, these are often not the agents you Google, because if you go to do that, if you Google Salt Lake City, you probably end up with me, but I've got a full team. And to be really honest with you, you're probably not going to get me on the phone. So we've found good, responsive, tech savvy, still hungry producers. And we went to mortgage companies and said, look, let us attach our software to whatever CRM you use. So to get technical, we just do an API plugin. And that way, when a loan officer is filling out an application for a customer, they can ask the Dijjit questions, which is, have you signed a buyer broker with a realtor? And if the loan officer asks that, all they have to do is click yes or no, and then a pop-up window comes up in their CRM and says, great, in Salt Lake City, Utah, we've got Jake Breen. He's ranked a 95 out of 100 in their algorithm, and he'll be very responsive. Do you want me to refer him? There's different scripts that go around.
Yeah.
As we started doing that, the very first year with one mortgage company in beta, we closed 38 doctors and physicians around the country.
Wow.
And
what an amazing achievement.
Yeah. So it really, it really took off. And so we've branched into applying that same philosophy to many other businesses, because a lot of other businesses work similarly. So now one of our large clients is a property management company in Salt Lake City, Utah, because their main business, the way they generate revenue, is managing properties. But then they're also kind of a first touch point to a lot of investors or renters that want to stop renting and buy. And typically what happens in the industry is a realtor sniffs that out and gets a good relationship with the property manager, and they kind of refer business back and forth. Well, we at Dijjit can take that process and digitize it. Yeah. We can make it automated for the property manager. We can start marketing to all of their renters and prepping them educationally for their future purchase. And then we can legally route back a referral fee to the property manager for sending us the client. And so we can show them how that's zero liability on their part, but they can actually benefit financially from real estate commissions once people exit their property they're managing. So our philosophy at Dijjit is just to make that B2B, business to business referral situation smooth for everybody. And this is another one of my pet peeves, Adam, and I won't dispel the secret, but it's kind of built into one of the other myths. I have a pet peeve with a lot of the training that goes down for sales folk in almost any industry. And it's like, I know there's cool softwares and all this, but at the end of the day, what we've reduced the value of a salesperson to is solicitation. Like you dive into any CRM and it's like, here's a better way to solicit this client. Well, in real estate, if you're a buyer, buyers have gotten pretty savvy. They know if they put their information in Zillow, they're going to get hounded. And they may or may not know this, but that information is being sold time and time again to like the bottom of the barrel, and your cell phone's just getting lit up. And we've never done that. And it's that style just drives me bonkers.
Mm.
So the philosophy at Dijjit is not to refer the doctor and then hound the heck out of them via phone call, text, and email until they tell us to stop. The philosophy is this, and truly, I don't know of any other software that's doing this around the country, but our philosophy is timing.
Yeah.
So when you bring a horse to the trough, okay, if you think about the life of a real estate transaction, someone could start looking on a Saturday and be buying on Monday. And another consumer could be looking and it takes 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know when, but if they put their information in online, they're hounded for a year or a day, like in that time.
Yeah.
At Dijjit, our philosophy is we will intersect you when you are the horse walking to the trough to get the water. In other words, when you're making actionable steps, actually buy, in other words, you're filling out a loan application with a loan officer. At that moment, we want to refer you to a good realtor because it's on your mind. You're taking actionable steps, and it's not going to be weird if we connect with you at that moment. And you likely have real questions surrounding your purchase at that moment. Other than that, we're going to be pretty hands off.
Yeah. Jake, how do first off, it's a brilliant model, and the timing part is just so like crucial in what you said, especially if you know, in theory, maybe the individual has a little bit of rapport with the mortgage company as well, or the mortgage officer. And then what you're doing also is giving the especially for people that are moving into a new market they don't know nothing about, what you're doing also is giving a level of value to the actual home buyer that's looking anyway. Like they don't know when they go, what are they going to do? Go online and Google and research like who's the best realtor in that market. You know, it's just difficult. And then especially for some of the niches that you're working with, very busy professionals, right? Like they don't have that time. So I think the model is brilliant. I'm curious. So how do people get involved, whether it's mortgage companies, whether it's realtors in different markets? Like how do people get involved with the Dijjit platform overall?
Yep. The simplest option is just to go to our website, Dijjit.com. It's DIJJIT.com. And you kind of covered it, Adam. We have a lot of options. So we're always looking for good realtors, and we have leads. Of course, we always want customers. And so far, the last 6 years, you know, we have some revenue models in which we might charge lenders. But so far, the last 6 years, we attach this software to whatever CRM the lender is using for free. We charge nothing. And we have data and statistics that proves, especially when you're crossing state lines where you don't have a physical office, we can increase your conversion drastically. In fact, 6 years running, we have a 27% increase in lead conversion for a cross state line lending for any lender that's been using us.
Oh, that's big time. That's significant numbers you're talking about. It's awesome. So Jake, just have to add, first off, it's been great having you back on the show and reconnecting and seeing all the great work you're doing over at Dijjit. Of course, happy and thrilled and excited to continue to promote this book with you and for you. That being said, I know you're a busy guy. I got to ask, you know, we're recording this in February of 2023. What's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for your real estate business?
Hey man, that's a great question. I wasn't ready for that. I am actually currently at a crossroads. So we went independent and boutique last fall. That's going great. You know, Dijjit is growing outside of just the sales we do. I've got a lot of fun projects for me doing the design and kind of the investment side is just the fun part. And my brother, who offices right here behind me, he's our general contractor in-house. So we're kind of like what people see on HGTV. We cover that entire gamut.
Yeah.
And I am trying to decide how I splice my time and where I focus that energy. I currently am consulting for one of the larger ski companies in the United States. Not Vail, but one of the other ones. So they've been actively buying ski resorts. So I've been able to travel around and help them master plan how they develop out these resorts. And, you know, my kids are ages 15 to 3. And so I'm not going to spoof any of our listeners. I am spending a lot of time hanging out with them and vacationing a
Yeah.
decent amount and sleeping more and trying to stay fit and healthy.
Man, I love it. You deserve it. And that's awesome. I mean, this is one of those things when I talk about like entrepreneurship and people being entrepreneurs and the idea or whatever they choose to do of figuring out what balance and time is going to work for them throughout their life. So great to hear that you're getting some family time in there. Don't want to forget that. As we kind of close this out, if somebody does want to connect and learn more about Dijjit or the real estate brokerage or any of your other projects, I mean, just in general, what's
Sure.
the best way for people to follow your journey?
I'll just give my personal email. I'm happy to, I still respond to my own emails. I've got an assistant that watches it, but any generalized question. And if it's specific to Utah and real estate investing, I'm not only an expert there, we've got a lot of current material we can just send people. If it's software questions in the industry of real estate, I do a decent amount of consulting there. So happy to answer anything, any questions anybody has. And my personal email is just jakebreen@gmail.com. So it's JAKE, B as in boy, REEN@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And we'll put all that information in the show notes so that our audience can check it out and connect with you. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or listening to an episode or engaging with the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, really what gets them up and motivated and fired up to go out into the marketplace and make a difference every day. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Jake, as always, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to continue this book promo with you. Thanks again for coming back on the show.
Sure thing, Adam. And it's been great to see you grow as well. So appreciate the time.